Hi, my name is Laurel, founder of Laurel's Originals, and today I'm going to show you how we make our canvas placemats. In this video, you will learn how to measure out your placemats, paint the canvas, and varnish your canvas. Once you learn this technique, there are many things that you can do with it. You can make placemats of any shape and size. You can make coasters. You can make little dog mats and cat mats for your little kitty balls. Table runners, table covers. They're completely sealed on both sides, so you can wash them with soap and water. They don't mold, they don't stain, and you can make them in any variety of colors. So let's get started on learning how to make our placemats. Okay, the first thing you want to do is cut out your pattern. You can use a light cardboard, and we make a lot of placemats, so I actually have a piece of canvas that's been painted on both sides so it's sturdy, and because we use it a lot, and sometimes we even test it for stamps. As you can see, it's kind of messy looking. So what we do is we have a piece of cotton canvas. This cotton canvas has been pre-shrunk. On your PDF, you will find a link to a blog that will show you how we pre-shrink our cotton canvas. And once you have a piece, you want to measure a piece that's slightly larger than the set of placemats that you're going to be making. So I have this pattern here with some space around the edge. Let me move this out. Okay, so you can see the space around the edge. And this is just because even though that this cotton has been pre-shrunk, because we're using a water-based latex paint on top of it, it will cause even a little bit more shrinking. And also it's nice to have some space to properly cut around the edges. So I just have this placemat here, and I'm going to flip it over 4 times, and then I'm going to cut the piece of material very close to the size that I will need for the 4 placemats, because I don't like to waste painting on a small piece of canvas that I'll be cutting off. So measure your piece of canvas, and then we'll go on to the painting. Okay, so you've got your cut piece of canvas and you're ready to put on your first coat. You're going to be painting 2 coats of paint on one side and 1 coat of paint on the other side, on the entire piece of material that you've cut out for your set of canvas placemats. It's very important, this will become a very close friend of yours, is the lint roller. So you will want to run your lint roller over the material to make sure that they clean up all the dirt and lint and whatever else is on there. Okay, so now that you have your lint roller, I don't know if you've never painted canvas before, the first coat absorbs a lot of paint. I have a gallon of paint here. If you're doing a set of 4 placemats around 12 to 18 inches, that's the size I'm doing here, you're gonna need a couple of quarts, okay, or at least 1.5 quarts. If you happen to have some acrylic paint in your house, you can use that as a base coat and just go out and buy the quart of the color that you want. But you need to have 2 coats on each side. But initially, on the solid piece of material, before cutting, you're going to paint 2 coats on one side and 1 coat on the other. So I've stirred my paint, and I'm just going to start painting. And you really need a lot of paint, and you're going to push it into the canvas. This canvas is going to soak up a lot of paint. Okay, and you want some good coverage. Hopefully you have a table with a piece of plastic on it, or a table that you can just wipe up afterwards, because I'm going to paint all the way to the end. Even though I have a little bit of area around each placemat. Remember, this is water-based paint. This is 100% cotton canvas. Even though it's been pre-shrunk, there's a good chance that this paint is going to shrink it just a little bit more. So that was just to give you some information about painting canvas for the first time. You see, I'm really pressing down there. I have a nice firm brush. Now the second coat's going to be a lot easier because this will be sealed. Okay, but the first coat I really want to make sure that the grain and the raw cotton canvas is absorbing this latex paint. Okay, well now after your paint is dry, 2 coats on one side, 1 coat on the other, we're ready to cut our placemats. Okay, we painted our piece of material that is for the set of placemats, twice on one side, once on the other, and we've laid down our pattern and cut out our individual placemats. The reason why we do this, we found it's just a lot easier to handle the material. If you cut out a placemat for the raw canvas and try and paint one side and the other side and the other side, it's just more wieldy and just more complicated. It's much easier to handle one piece of material and then cut out the individual placemats. And now we're going to apply the very last coat. Now this placemat is beige on both sides, and it has 2 coats on one side. Here we go. It's got 2 coats on this side. I'm going to lay that down. This is the side with the 1 coat, okay? But I'm going to make this a different color. Let me show you something. The fun thing about these placemats is that you can have 2 designs or coordinating colors on both sides. So for example, I have this splatter design painted, and on the back is black. Okay, so these can be used together or just black or the splatter. This placemat has this design on the other side. So you can coordinate your colors, you can make coordinating designs or just make 2 completely different designs, and you'll have twice the amount of placemats. So these are fun things to think about when you're painting. So before we get started, we're going to use our trusty lint roller. You should be using this lint roller in between every coat. Once your coat's dry and you're ready for the second coat, use your lint roller. It picks up animal hairs, dust, lint, of course. Okay, so now we're ready to get started. So I'm going to use this beautiful bright blue. Make sure that you have some place to put this placemat when you're done. Make sure you're going to have an area to put your set of placemats to dry before you get started, and your work area. So what we do is we take our paint and we're going to paint in the center of the placemat. We're not going to paint around the edges yet. And this blue makes it really easy to see too. I'm holding it down with my fingers so it doesn't slide around. Okay, now that I have my painted in the center, I'm going to take my paintbrush, and I'm going to put some around the edge here, the painted edge, and now from here I'm going to move out. I'm going to move out around the edge. The reason why I'm doing this is that you don't want to take a bunch of paint on your paintbrush and then run it around the edge, because it will seep underneath your placemat. If it's 2 different colors, it's going to spot up, it's going to make a mess on the other side. You're also laying your placemat down on a dry surface, and if it has wet paint underneath it, it could stick to the surface, and then that looks terrible when you lift it up. So you want to avoid that. This is also a technique you're going to be using when you varnish. And we'll be doing that together as well. Let me just get this one finished up. I lay a little bit down along the edge. Sorry. Lay a little bit around the edge. a little bit more. Hold it down. Okay. So now I'm going to gently lift it up with my fingertips. No spotting around the edge on the other side. So now I have my two colors. I'm going to lay it over here and take my trusty rag, which I said you're going to need a whole lot of. We're going to wipe this surface dry and start with our next placemat. Okay, so now you have your individual placemats. They've been cut out. They have two coats on each side. And now the fun part comes where you get to apply your design. So you're the artist. There's lots of different things you can do. You can hand paint. I don't know if you're familiar with our art, but we like to work a lot with actual leaves and do leaf presses. I have videos on how to do this. I also do stamps, so stamps are really fun, or a combination of the two. I also have a video on how to make your own stamps and how to stamp. So apply your design on one side and then apply your design on the other side. Then let your placemats dry for at least 3 days before you apply the varnish. Okay, depending on your climate. I live in the tropics, so sometimes depends if I'm in the rainy season and it's raining every day and it's very humid, I might let my paint dry for as long as 4 or 5 days. Okay, so it's very important, even though the paint feels dry to the touch, if it's not completely dry, once you apply your varnish, at some point your varnish will start cracking because it's reacting to the moisture that was in the paint. So after you've applied your design, just make sure that you let it dry for at least 3 days, and it could be even longer. And then now I'll show you how to varnish. Okay, now we have our placemat with a design on it. This placemat was actually, I was already painted, and it has 1 coat of varnish on it. You will be varnishing each side with 2 coats of varnish. Okay, so I varnish, I let it dry one day, varnish, let it dry the other side. If you varnish early in the morning on a sunny day, please only varnish on sunny days, unless you're in a very enclosed, climate controlled area, which I'm not. And then you can varnish in the morning, and then you can varnish in the evening when it's dry to the touch. I use an oil-based varnish. Now this does affect the color of the placemat. So I tend to golden tones, to greens, blues, reds, oranges, yellows. That's fine. I just can't do very light pastel colors or white, pure white. Now if you're in the United States, you can use different types of water-based varnish, which are much more clear, and they're very effective. And Sherwin-Williams has a marine coating, which is very flexible, and it's water-based. I would love to have access to those materials, but here in Costa Rica, I use a very good brand called Lanco, made here in Central America. And I've tried many different types of varnishes, and this one has the most flexibility and durability and less cracking, and so it's worked out very well for me. I like to use a matte varnish. So there are 3 types. There's matte, satin, and there's your brilliant, your very shiny varnish. So depending on the effect that you want, if you do get a matte varnish, then it will have a little gel on the bottom. And so it's very important that you mix that, because that's what makes your varnish matte and not shiny. If you don't mix your matte varnish, you're going to come out with shiny varnish. And sometimes it's helpful to use a whisk to do that. So I have already mixed my varnish very well. And of course, I have my trusty lint roller that I use in between every coat of varnish. And as I said, it's the same technique that we used when we were painting. Again, like when we were painting, when you're varnishing and you're varnishing on the first coat, it takes it absorbs a lot of the varnish. So when it's dry, it might not even look like it's been varnished. And then the second coat goes on a lot easier. So I painted in the center, and now I'm just going to go around the edge. It's so great because it seals the edge. And it's heavier now because it has so much paint and varnish. So I could be holding it down, but it's not going to slide around as much. So again, I'm going to gently lift it up with my fingers. Make sure you have space to put it. Et voila. I start on my next placemat. Well, I hope that this was as fun for you as it was for me. If you have any questions, feel free to write me at laurel@laurelsoriginals.com. You can check out my YouTube channel, has a lot of techniques for painting, and you can just write me or you can call me on my WhatsApp in Costa Rica, and I'd be happy to help you with any questions that you have. Okay, thank you. Have fun. Make lots of presents. Bye-bye.